Welcome to the From Concealment Podcast, the show for firearm enthusiasts who like to shoot, train, carry, and compete. Get ready for some shooting and sight, firearm and accessory reviews, and of course, insight on concealed carry. And now, broadcasting from behind enemy lines in the From Concealment studio, it's Pete Mitchell and Dan Sams.
Welcome to the Thriving Christian Business Podcast, the show that's dedicated to helping Christian business owners honor God while growing their business and profits through influencing the marketplace in such a way others are drawn to Christ by the example they reflect as they interact with their employees, vendors, and clients to grow the kingdom. Now, if you're ready for some inspiration, some encouragement, some proven business building strategies, and a couple of new ideas that you can take your business to the next level and beyond with, listen to this episode. If you're ready to grow your business faster, go to tcbsolution.com. And now, broadcasting from the Thriving Christian Business Podcast studio, it's Pete Mitchell and Dave Negri. Hey, Freedom Nation, this is Pete Mitchell.
And I am Dan Sams.
Wow, that was a dramatic pause there.
Yeah, you know what? I almost said that I am wearing a non-tactical vest in solidarity with Pete Mitchell. Because if Safe Life isn't going to send you your protective vests in solidarity, I'm not going to be protected from anything other than the cold right now.
Solidarity. Oh, man. One of us has to survive, man. One of us has to survive.
Well, that's... it's some of us. One of us will have to carry on the tradition here. So,
Well, and I did want to talk about this, so I'm glad you brought this up because I even told them in an email. I go, it's a good thing I do a gun podcast because I'm going to rip you guys apart on it. So you guys, if you've been listening to the podcast, you know, a couple of months ago, I finally got around to ordering up my body armor that I wanted. Mm-hmm. And I decided to go with Safe Life Defense because I liked the setup. I mean, that's really all it came down to is I really liked the setup.
It's a nice setup too.
And it's not cheap. I mean, it was like, I don't know, $1,100, I think, with shipping and everything and tax, all that jazz.
Yeah.
And so on their website, they said, oh, you know, this ships in 4 to 6 weeks. So of course I go 6 weeks, right? Because, you know, it's just not going to be 4 weeks. It's never the shorter time frame. So 6 weeks comes along. No notification that it shipped. So I email them. Hey, guys, you said 6 weeks. What's up? Oh, we're still waiting on, I don't know what the heck they said they were waiting on. That's going to be another 2 weeks. If you want, we can ship you half of it now, then we'll ship that when it comes. And I'm like, I can wait, but why in the world would you not communicate this with your client, right? Yeah. Who's given you money? And you've already told them, hey, we're going to ship this in 4 to 6 weeks. And then you decide to go dark and just party on with the money and not say anything. Yeah. So then I wait more than 2 weeks. And then I email them again. Hey, you guys said 2 weeks. What's the story now? Oh, it's another week and a half, but the offer's still on the table. We'll send you half of it now. And I'm like, dude, are you kidding me? This is horrible customer service. This is not how you treat people who've given you money. You don't make them reach out to you and go, where's my stuff? You cut it off at the pass and you go, hey, you know what? We've had some delays, this, that, or the next. And I'm like, look, if it doesn't ship in a week and a half, I want a refund because I'm pissed. And I should have just said, you know what? Refund me now. I can't stand, you know, basically rewarding poor customer service. Yeah. And then because we had the gun show this last week and we haven't had a gun show in like COVID, right? So it's been over a year. And so I took my son to it yesterday. And of course, there's plenty of body armor there, way cheaper. And I'm like, I should have just told him, you know, give me my money back. I knew I could get it there. I knew I could. I wanted to get it at the gun show originally anyway, because I wanted to try everything on, make sure I liked it, all of that. And so anyway, my advice to people is, hey, you know what? Safe Life Defense, they're another optics planet. So you know, expect bad customer service.
At least Optics Planet won't take your money until
at least they don't take your money until they're ready to ship.
Yeah. Well, and the thing is, like, I would understand that, like, it's crazy time. I get it, right? But communication is key. If they'd have been
That's all they had to
proactive,
do, right? Was communicate.
because when they're not proactive in the communication, it looks like they're hiding something, right? But when they're proactive, man, I will bend over backwards. I'll do as much as I can to accommodate because, hey, I recognize you're trying. But man, when you're not even communicating with me, then I'm just like, okay, well, you don't care enough. Not only are you breaking your word to me, but you don't care enough to let me know what's going on. I have to check in with you. I just don't like that.
Yeah, it was the same way with the 80% Arms, I think was the name of that company. Remember, I ordered their GS9, and like they took the money, and it was like 7 months later, and I'm like, "Where is this?" "Oh, you got to go on our website and check to see what the update is." I'm like, "What?" I'm like, "No, just give me back my money. I'm done with you people. You're stupid." Yeah. And it's like customer service, man. I don't care if this is the gun world. Customer service. That's all it takes.
Yeah. Well, and when it comes to something like Safe Life, where I mean you spent a chunk of change on what I've heard really great things about the armor, right? But like $1,000, you can get decent armor. You get 2 sets of decent armor for $1,000, right? You know, like you put some real money in there. You're expecting premium service, right?
Well, that was a funny thing. Like, I'm at the gun show, and this guy yesterday was like, "Hey, I got 3+ armor here, 300 complete package out the door." I'm like, I'd be just fine with that. And it was funny too, because I think it was a Condor vest. I'm like, "Hey, it's Dan."
That's right, rocking the Condor. Hey, I got approval from a special forces operator that like he's like, "Yeah, man, you do what you need to do in Condor. You're
Dude,
fine."
who cares? Like, if it works, it's all that matters. I don't care about the brand.
Yeah, well, and I mean, you look at some of the stitching and all that, like Condor's pretty solid. At least my experience, everything I've had from them has been well made. You know, I'm right now trying to find a really quality assault pack, and that's harder to find these days. Even like the nicer stuff, you start reading the reviews and you're like, man, there's a lot of these you hear about like handles failing and whatever. You know, it's hard to find, or the layout doesn't do what you want it to do. So it's hard to find stuff that is made from any type of textile that holds up. And there's certain things I want it to hold up, you know, But my experience, man, that Condor is done just fine. And I've actually put some wear on mine and it's holding up good.
Nice.
So no complaints, man. I recognize, you could go and get your Crye Precision and you could spend, more than you spend on the armor for the vest. And that's fine. Like, I'm sure it's awesome stuff, but oh man, as a civilian, I don't think I'm going to do that. So
yeah. Well, what are you going to say? So I will say this about the gun show yesterday, right? So we haven't had a gun show in a year. It comes to town and I'm like, and it was a 3-day gun show, and they don't normally do 3 days. It's usually just Saturday, Sunday. This was a Friday, Saturday, Sunday job. And so I was like, all right, well, I'm going to go because I got to find something for my son and I to do anyway, because I can't stand playing Fortnite hours on end. And that's like his thing. Right. And I'm like, not a gamer. So I'll like play a little bit and then I'm like, okay, that's it. I gotta figure out something else to do.
Yeah.
So we go to the gun show. It's all outdoors. And for the first time, it was freaking hot in Orange County yesterday. And I'm like, the redhead, right? So I'm like, oh, great, man. I got to walk around in the sun and just fry and burn and whatnot. And so we're going around the place. Now, normally at the gun show, the number one type of vendor they have is an ammo vendor. Like, there'll be just ammo vendors all over the place. All I could tell was there was one ammo vendor only at this place. Actually, take that back. Turner's was there, and I think Turner's like sold out of their ammo. But then one other, Turner's is a chain that we got here in California. And then there was, this one other vendor. But because of these stupid laws we have in California, you now have to get a background check to buy ammo. And this is one that we're fighting in the courts, and the courts keep ruling in our favor, and it keeps getting an injunction against it. And so, it keeps going up higher and higher level. Probably end up the Supreme Court. And I think the feds are trying to model their ammo law after California's. Again, reason why NRA should never have abandoned California like they did.
Yep.
So you have to get a background check. the line to get ammo was 3 hours long. And I was just like, this is crazy. I am not standing in line for 3 hours. Plus, I'll just make my own ammo. I mean, I don't need a background check to make my own ammo. So that's what I've been doing. So I can fight the background check.
Good for you, man. Keep fighting it.
Yeah.
Oh, but that right there, that's an example of what's to come for the rest of us if we don't do something about it.
It is, unfortunately. Yeah. Every bad law that California and New York could think up, it's being looked at.
Yeah.
And I heard the Supreme Court had the opportunity to look at 3 different cases today for gun rights, and they declined 2 of them. And I haven't heard about the 3rd one. Have you heard anything about that today?
No, I haven't. I wasn't following it today.
Yeah,
Can you tell me a little bit about it?
Well, the first one was an NFA thing. The guy bought a suppressor, didn't register it, so maybe he bought it off a person. I don't know the background on it. And of course, he gets arrested. He gets 60 months in jail and like a $10,000 fine. And it even made the point, his public defenders, I'm like, great, he's got public defenders for this. I mean, forget it, right? But how'd they even get it all the way up to the Supreme Court? They're like, look, this isn't fair. It was a $200 tax and he didn't pay a $200 tax. Therefore, you're going to put him in jail for 5 years. They're like, that doesn't even fit the crime. I mean, this is ridiculous. And they declined to hear that one. And I don't remember the other 2. One of them was a concealed carry thing. It was a New York concealed carry, which I don't know if they'll hear it, but man, I really hope they do, because like the Ninth Circuit Court, the big news this last week was with the Ninth Circuit Court here in that it does the western part of the country. They basically ruled on a case that you don't have the right to bear arms, open carry. And this is on top of their earlier decision a few years ago that you don't have the right to conceal carry. So they just said, based on their 2 decisions, you don't have the right to carry a gun, which is a direct violation of the Second Amendment.
Yeah.
Direct violation.
It's funny, it actually says we have the right to keep and bear arms, and their language is, no, you don't really have the right to bear arms.
Right. not really bear it. Bear it in your home, but not outside.
That is the biggest clown joke I have heard of. And if that doesn't make you want to defy every federal gun law and be ready to fight, I don't know what will. It's like that stuff, that pisses me off.
I mean, you're basically saying the Constitution is toilet paper and the Bill of Rights don't actually exist. That's what the courts are saying. They're saying it means nothing at all.
Yeah, and then we get into a situation where like, okay, so the government is not, or our Constitution is meaningless at that point, which means our government is meaningless at that point. So then what the heck are we doing?
Yeah. I like that meme. I don't know if you saw it on my Facebook page. Taxation with representation ain't so hot either.
Well, I would actually argue that given the circumstances of our election, I don't think this is taxation with representation. I would argue that this is not even representation anymore. But that is a much bigger tinfoil hat laden discussion that we probably shouldn't have on here.
Except our listeners love your tinfoil hat discussions.
Well, I mean, I'm still pointing out that just from an epistemological perspective, we know that there was election fraud. Now, the quantity of it is unknown. Whether or not it overthrew the election is unknown. But statistically,
and it's unknown, and they don't want to know it. Like that's the thing; they don't want to find out the answer.
Exactly. So I would put together one: we have documentation of tampering, and of fraud. Right? That's known, no question about it. We have over 1,000 affidavits. We have all of this situation. Like something happened. We know that, and then we have enough statistical anomalies to indicate that something so strange happened that seemed to have gone the exact opposite of the way the election should have. So I put those 2 things together. It makes it very, very likely that the election result we got is antithetical to what actually happened in the vote. And so, no, we don't know those things for sure, but we're stacking it up. We're looking at the evidence in front of us, from the actual like physical evidence to the statistical evidence. And now that leads us to a very likely conclusion that this was a fraudulent election in its entirety. And so that just puts us in a situation where we're like, okay, so what should I do? I can't trust that this is a legitimate government. And so, and they're not going to investigate it, even though that there's all this evidence that they should. And so that leads me to the thought of like, okay, so this is no longer taxation with representation. It is taxation without representation, which means, well, we need a code word for what that means, because I can't say it on here without, I don't know, something real bad happening to my dog. So anyway, but hopefully we're all thinking very seriously about this.
Yeah.
And so we had the whole Ninth Circuit Court thing, which basically was just a big FU to the Constitution. Well, then we also have, that in the wake of the Colorado,
which, by the way, we haven't talked about the Colorado situation. We should probably talk about that.
Can we talk about that here? Let's make that our main topic here, actually, because there's a lot of comments. There's a lot of things worth discussing related to that. But I would just point out the White House is threatening executive action. And that is a concern. I mean, because we've already seen Trump set the precedent with executive orders related to guns, and it's a bad precedent. And so what we're looking at, they're threatening some things related to background checks. They're threatening some things related to quote unquote assault weapons. And of course, related to the quote unquote Charleston loophole. I'm going to get tired of doing quote unquotes. But it's worth being a little concerned. They're going to try something here. And as we're seeing, the Ninth Circuit Court certainly wasn't helping. Right. So I'd love to see what happens at the Supreme Court level if we can get something up there. But this is serious business. I keep saying what is happening is bad. Sometimes the alarmists go further than they should in the immediate fear. But the reality is it keeps getting worse. And every little step is another precedent that allows them to do more and more and more. And so I'm just going to remind everybody, do whatever you do, do not comply. That will be the end. The old saying is, the government always takes the guns right before they do something that you would shoot them for. And we must take that very seriously. And so, anyway, so maybe I should comfort everybody and say like, hey, good news. This is taxation without representation. This is sounding really familiar. And now they're going to try to come and take our guns. I'm thinking this sounds super freaking familiar, boys. So let's be ready for whatever might be going down. Anyway, hypothetically in Minecraft, I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, Pete.
Yeah, all I can say is we're living in some dangerous times. And I think the part that scares me the most are people who haven't studied history, or I mean, I wouldn't even consider myself a huge history buff, but it's like I know enough of it to know a disarmed people is a conquered people.
Yeah.
We always joke in my family because technically, I'm almost embarrassed to say this on Facebook where people can see how freaking white I am. But in my family, we are Kauai Indian. And I have a document from the Bureau of Indian Affairs, Department of the Interior, Bureau of Indian Affairs. It says, I am Kauai Indian. And the reason is my tribe sued the government because, as we joke in our family, white man stole our land. And the settlement went down as far as my generation. I mean, look how freaking white I am, right? Like I am about as non-Indian as you can get. Right?
That's seriously the funniest thing I've heard all day, Pete.
It's the only thing I can prove, too. I can't even prove I'm Irish. I can't even go, well, look at the red. No, I can't prove I'm Irish. All I can prove is
prove that you're Native American.
That's the only thing I can prove. Because I got, Bureau of Indian Affairs says I'm Kauai Indian. And but you look at what did they do to the Indians? Disarm them, kill them. Disarm them and kill them. I mean, that's pretty much how it rolls.
You need to say us.
Yeah, sorry. What did they do to my people? What did they do to my peeps? Disarm them, take their land.
Oh man, we got to make some memes related to this, man. Like, I'm picturing like, yeah.
My dad one time visited the Kauai reservation, and he was like, "Yeah, I did not tell anyone there I was Kauai Indian." He's like, because he's talking to real Indians, and he's like, "Yeah, no, I'm not even going there. I'm not even telling them." Oh, by the way, I'm one of you. I'm like, yeah.
Oh, that's great. By the way, Cowboy just got on here and says more Indian than Elizabeth Warren. Which
It's true, though. It's true. I got proof. She doesn't. Did you ever see that meme where it was like 1,024th Navy SEAL, and it's like this really fat guy?
There's so many great memes that came out of that. It was beautiful.
Yeah.
By the way, Black Ops is on here, and he made the comment about the government always takes the guns before they do something you'd shoot them for, and he might have actually beat me to the punch on that. I can't tell how fast he got that up there. He might have been thinking of that at the same time. So, well done, Black Ops. Well done. What a time, man. Oh, so that's I'm just can't believe I totally forgot everything else we were going to talk about.
Well, we were going to talk about the shooting in Colorado.
Yeah.
These things seem to happen in pairs too, right? Like,
yeah.
Big shooting in Atlanta, and then all of a sudden in Colorado. It's really weird how that happens.
Yeah, you would think that the CIA and FBI would like try to space those out a little bit just for their own cover's sake, but whatever. You guys do your thing in there. So no, I have a couple of thoughts on it. I don't know if you don't mind.
Let's hear it. I want to hear your thoughts.
So I'm thinking about this from a pastoral biblical perspective first, right? That we are a nation now that is what we would call post-Christian. And in that sense, it means our culture, and as a general whole, has rejected any idea of a biblical framework for ethics, for morality, for redemption, anything like that. And so it is a culture now without any type of moorings. And so there's not an objective moral standard with which events can be judged, right? So it's normally judged in the framework of, okay, what is the most critical theory? What's the most intersectionality thing we can look at this? And so you'll notice that in the Atlanta shooting, which happened, was it a couple of days before the Colorado shooting?
Yeah, it was just days before. With
the Atlanta shooting, before we knew anything hardly other than that a shooting had happened, everything was going to, this is anti-Asian hate. And they tried to attach the racial motive for it, right? And everything was going nuts on this thing. And then, of course, trying to connect it to, well, he went to a Southern Baptist church. So this is clearly radicalization of young men through Christianity, and essentially just mounting a whole campaign of what the cause with this was for this thing, right? Which is curious because it's like, man, was the pastor teaching on shooting up Asians that Sunday, right? Like we start, there's a narrative that's attached that then doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Well, then they interview the guy, and of course he is deeply disturbed, but his whole thing is like, it had nothing to do with it was Asians. It was this whole sexual whatever thing that he was messed up on. He's crazy, right? No matter how you cut it. But there was no inkling that there was any type of a racial motivation for what he was doing. In fact, he was planning to drive to Florida initially. I don't know if he wanted to save on gas, but his initial plan was to go and shoot up something else that wouldn't have involved Asians. And so these kinds of things where we try to attach a narrative, usually related to whatever the reigning critical theory concern is at the moment. And so similarly, we saw it blow up in their face. Now they don't care, but it blew up in their face with the Colorado shooting because the initial pictures made this guy look like he was white. And so they're like, one more white guy shooting people up. Well, then it turns out he's Syrian, and it turns out he only shot white people. And it turns out he's Muslim. And then the whole narrative, all of a sudden, the Twitter people have pretended like everything that they just tweeted didn't happen. And they've started over at square one to make it an anti-gun message. And I think my thought is that it is a narrative discussion that is not tied to the facts or to any type of principles. It's just, what can I do to advance my political narrative? And it is frustrating as heck. So anyway, that's my thought right now on all of that. It just makes me mad.
Yeah, I mean, from what I understand, he's not saying a whole lot, so we don't know what his motivation was, why he did what he did. I know everyone's been making the correlation. Well, he's Syrian, and we just bombed Syria, therefore he's retaliating. And it's like, maybe, but he hasn't said that. I mean, the bigger, I think, struggle that I have with that theory is I believe he's been here since 99. And it's like, he was born in Syria, but he's lived most of his life here. He probably considers himself more of an American, a Muslim American, than necessarily Syrian. But I don't know that. I don't know the dude, right?
Well, and we do know that there is an effort to radicalize guys like that. So yeah, I'm with you on that. But we also know that they make an effort to try to radicalize those guys because you can do more with them. They're less suspicious, especially a Syrian guy that looks kind of pale,
right?
But you're exactly right. We don't know. And
then I saw articles too, and I thought this to me was pretty much ridiculous. They're like, yeah, all the gun control people are going nuts when they found out it was a pistol and not a rifle. And I'm like, dude, it's an AR pistol. It's basically a rifle. But yeah, don't be like, oh, they're losing their minds because they found it. Dude, it's a pistol because the ATF has come up with like the dumbest way to like, this is a pistol, this is a rifle, oh, this is a short barrel rifle, this is like none of that stuff makes any sense.
Yeah.
And
it's all, yeah.
And let's face it, AR pistols are really, really good. I mean, those are top-notch quality firearms right there.
Yeah, remember, Pete, as long as you use it incorrectly. You remember that's very important, because the ATF ruling is that you're not really supposed to treat it like a rifle, but if you use it incorrectly, well, that's just an accident.
That's what they were saying at one point. Who knows what they'll say when they actually?
Who knows what they're going to say tomorrow, man?
Yeah.
Which that's the thing. On a whim, you could not get the memo, and they changed the ruling. And again, not a law, right? If the ATF changes their interpretation, and you become a felon, not because the law changed, but because the ATF changed their mind about how something was supposed to look.
I gotta say that that if Biden keeps going down the path, I mean, it's like, why not just turn that pistol into a short barrel rifle? Because
might as well.
You're going to jail anyway. I mean, drill the third hole. I don't know. Like, I got into it on Facebook with this certifiable idiot. And I was trying to like be gracious about it, but then his stupidity just kept becoming more and more overwhelming. Like, he did not understand that an M16 is different than an AR-15. He's like, it's the same thing. I'm like, no, it's not. I go, an M16 is fully auto. An AR is semi-auto. He goes, no, it's not. That would be a machine gun. Those aren't machine guns. And I'm like, oh my gosh, dude, this guy is like out there. And so finally I'm just like, all right, dude, you got some strong opinions on this. Carry on. I just walked away. And then he's all taking the high road. I see. Maybe now you learned something. You learned that an M16 and an AR-15 are the same. And I'm like, okay.
Oh my gosh.
Don't respond to this idiot.
That guy right there, guys like him are the reason why we're going to have a civil war. Because he believes exactly the opposite to the facts and will not discuss the facts. And that makes it impossible to reason with him. So that puts you in a situation like, okay, well, as long as you stay over there, we're fine. What happens when that guy crosses the line and he decides he wants to enforce his version of truth?
Dude, Tyler is, I'm sorry, never mind. I can't say
Tyler. You're
good. Somebody else, Cowboy, just sent me the funniest stinking memes ever. The hair may be red, but so is the heritage.
He messaged us on Facebook and was like, hey, meme templates inbound. This is awesome.
Oh, safe life and the GS9 aren't the only things the white man has taken from me. Dude, these are classic, man.
Oh, that's awesome. Well done. Well done, Cowboy.
Man.
Hey, those gotta go. Those gotta go in the feed, man. Those have to go in the Telegram feed.
They do. I'm gonna stick those in the Telegram feed. By the way, guys, if you're not on their Telegram feed, you gotta get on it. Text the keyword hero, HERO, to 850-990-2020. 850-990-2020. I'll put it in the show notes. Get on our Telegram feed because that's where we put all the good memes. Those are just freaking hilarious, man.
I'll tell you what, man. The more stuff goes down, the better the memes get.
I know, right?
They keep well, and I'm gonna preface this one that this is right on the line, but somebody shared a picture of Rachel Levine, quote unquote Rachel Levine. If you guys don't remember, it's the transgender who is, what is it, Pennsylvania health director, now I think becoming our national health director. And somebody says, well, if Rachel Levine can add a third hole, why can't I? So that was what we call over the line. Sorry, Pete.
Remember, this is the family-friendly gun podcast.
Sorry.
Pastor.
Yeah, sorry. So anyway, yeah, that was over the line, but it was too good. Oh my gosh.
That's a funny one. No, so I mean, you look at the whole Syrian shooting thing, it's definitely the media just kind of jumped all over it, blamed it on white people. And I mean, there's so much like white hate right now. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, I kind of look at it and I'm like, okay, I don't, personally feel threatened or anything, but it's like, wow, man, they're really hating on white people right now. And that's kind of like backfire because, I mean, people are only going to take it so long. And then it's like, well, then forget it. What are we doing playing this game of trying to be civil?
Well, this is one of the problems that we're running into because within the, if you're familiar at all with the kind of history of what we call cultural Marxism, where critical theory comes from, critical race theory, all the other critical queer theory, and all the various theories, they're all rooted in this whole Gramsci school of thought or the Frankfurt School. And the idea is that it is only meant to destroy. There is no redemption in it. There's never being sorry enough. It is, you just hate yourself until you die if you are part of the hegemony. And so at some point, it begins with, wow, man. And anybody can look and say like, man, black people have been treated bad. It's no question of it, right? And so it starts off, some white dudes are like, man, let's try to make this right. Let's do some things. I want to make sure that I'm treating my brother right. And then it, you might go to the same with like, hey, the American Indians have been treated poorly. Let's talk about this. But then what happens is that the snowball of, but there's not a redemption. There's never a grace. There's never a way that you can make it right or do enough. And so now you're apologizing for things that you didn't do, right? But you're apologizing for maybe what ancestors did or what is assumed your ancestors did. And it becomes about the fact that it's not even about whose ancestors, it's, are you part of the hegemony? And then, you can have this particular cultural background, but you're not really in that anymore. You're now in this other one. And so at some point people are just like, I'm tired of trying, because the harder I try, the more I am beaten down over this. And I get concerned about the people who are trying and what happens when they just get sick of it. Because this kind of comes back to, if I'm rooted in a biblical morality, I can say, hey, man stealing is wicked. Like the law of God rules that out. You're never supposed to steal another person. In fact, you get the death penalty in the Old Testament for trying to steal another man to enslave him, right? And so you think about, like, I have the law of God, I can say that's wrong. Or we have tribalism is clearly seen as sin in Scripture. And so I can say, like, that's sin, this is bad. But when I'm operating with something other than the law of God, it puts me in the situation where I'm like, well, how do I know that that's right and that's wrong? And what ends up happening is just people in power try to control with their ever-changing rules. And that's what we're seeing with critical theory. And now it is very much the people in power are the ones promoting this critical theory thing, and it will lead to death. Yeah, that's not a threat. That's just a reality. We're watching it happen. So anyway, sorry. That's
things that I find kind of amazing. You probably heard about Evanston, Illinois. They are the first that are basically doing reparations in the U.S. and they decided as a city council, 8-1 vote, to distribute $25,000 each to 16 eligible Black households for use for home repairs or as down payments on property. And, they're basically, the nation was crying out, going, oh, this is the first reparations we're making for slavery. And dude, I have a huge problem with that. Like, you're seriously going to steal from, like, if I lived there, I'd be like, you're stealing from me. You're stealing from my grandparents. You're stealing from my parents. You're stealing from everyone I know to give to someone else. Well, what makes you think that I'm that much better off, that it's okay to steal from me? I'm not cool with you stealing from me.
Yeah.
And man, I'm telling you, this it's getting crazier and crazier in America.
And not tied to any distinctive moral framework. It's just insanity. And it's gonna get worse.
And I guess they're using the money from a new tax, of course. This time on marijuana, and legalized marijuana. And I'm like, dude, still, you're stealing. You're stealing, because that means you wouldn't need to take as much money from me for other things. Like if I lived there, right? I'd be like, well, then, you're getting all this extra money from tax and marijuana, which, again, I'm not in favor of any taxes. I'm pretty much anti-tax all the way around.
Yeah.
But if you're going to be taking more, then take less over here. You don't just keep taking more.
Yeah.
You don't do anything for that.
I've actually advocated, I'm like, I believe that the income tax specifically is a form of fractional slavery.
Oh, of course it is.
Taking a person's product of their work. And not in any consumer sense, it's your very ability to work is being taxed. And the very fact that they can do that means they think they own you, right? So they're like, we're taking this much percentage right now, but we can take as much as we want whenever we want. We can change it anytime we want. And so my argument is that is actually a form of slavery. Now, we can put tariffs and consumer taxes in a different category. I have different issues, different reasons, that's a whole different discussion, but income tax specifically is fractional slavery. And the question is, what percentage of you do they take? And so my thought is, okay, why don't we just start with, let's set the reparations discussion just in the context of what's happening right now. How about we just start with not immediately continuing to enslave people through the income tax? And so I'm like, what if we start with that? What if we, if they want to say reparations, I'm like, all right, let's start not using the income tax for Black people. I don't think we should do it for anybody, but you want to start? Let's start not enslaving them right now. How about that? And of course, then I'm some kind of a crazy person when I come up with that idea. But I'm like, why not? I mean, like right now, you're taxing people for their ability to earn things. How is that different than a plantation owner who forced you to work? And guess what they're doing? They're like, oh, we're going to give you food. We're going to give you shelter. We're going to give you everything you need. And we're providing everything you need. And I'm like, that sounds really, 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 really familiar and not in a good way. Anyway.
I think I told you that was the meme that my sister unfriended me over.
Really?
Yeah, because then she's like, well, and see, for those of you who don't understand this, man, I deal with what I'm going to call a liberal Christian all the time, and they try and take the Bible and completely pervert it into this liberal thing. She's like, well, maybe that was God's way of taking care of other people, is through taxes. And I'm like, no. God is concerned about your heart. He wants you to take care of other people, you to give your money. He doesn't want you to take my money, my neighbor's money, my parents' money, my grandparents' money, and then decide, oh, I'm going to give a little bit over here, a little bit over there, but I'm going to keep a bunch over here too because I'm so inefficient at giving out money. I'm like, no. And then she got all mad because she's like, you're missing what I'm saying. I'm like, no, you tried to justify sin and I called you out on it, and then she unfriended me.
Yeah. Well, put the two things together. So scripture is very clear that I'm supposed to care for others and I'm supposed to provide and do those kind of things. And it was interesting in the movie Uncle Tom, they talk about this one dude who's now conservative. And he's like, I remember somebody telling me like, well, where does it say that you're supposed to pay the government to do that? Doesn't it say you're supposed to do that? And he's like, it was a light bulb moment for me. But you add that, first of all, we're supposed to be helping, we're supposed to be doing things, but like, it doesn't make it okay to then break the, what is that? The 9th commandment of thou shalt not steal. So like if I'm going to take from somebody else to meet somebody else's need, well, now I'm just disobeying one commandment to obey another. Not okay.
Right.
And yeah, what a mess, man. We're into all kinds of topics today, man. And all this out of the Colorado shooting.
Yeah, I mean, man. Here's the thing, guys. You have to protect yourself. You have to stay strapped or get clapped, as we like to say.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, I remember I was gunning up, as I like to call it, before I was leaving the house to go to a doctor's appointment. My wife was like, "Are you going to the doctor? You're taking a gun?" I'm like, there was just a shooting at an emergency room. Yeah, I'm taking a gun. I'm taking a gun everywhere I go.
Yeah.
Because I don't know what's going to happen. You go to the store, take your gun. Why? Because idiots like this go shooting there. We had a shootout in LA County a couple of years back at a Sprouts. And I think the cops were responsible for killing a couple of civilians because there's such bad shots shooting from way too far away with a pistol. And they shot a couple of civilians.
Oh, dear.
I mean, it's like you are the one that is responsible for protecting you, your spouse, your kids, your loved ones, your friends. It's your responsibility. It's not the cops. Everyone calls somebody with a gun when everything goes down.
Yep.
Problem is, it's going to be too late by the time someone with a gun gets there.
Yep.
And your answer is, we're going to take away guns from the good guys in hopes that somehow the bad guys don't get it. The dude passed a background check. Doesn't matter. None of it matters.
And you know what? Even if he couldn't pass a background check, he could have bought it from some guy who stole it from somebody else's house. Could
have bought it legally in that state from anybody. Like you don't have to go through an FFL to buy private party.
Heck, he could have bought it off of a cartel in the Fast and Furious program that our own government provided. I mean, like there's no stopping it when it comes to evil. And you're exactly right. What needs to happen is that the citizens need to be personally armed and prepared. And I would argue then when they're like, well, we got to ban this, ban that. And I'm like, you know what would be great? What would be great is if there wasn't anything blocking me from easily open carrying an AR pistol. Wherever, or an SBR, anywhere I wanted to go. Because, if it wasn't for stigma and some legal problems here and there, heck, I'd do that every now and then. Talk about being ready. Like, dude walks in with that, like you're ready to clap that dude back.
Right. And I mean, that's what you have to be. You have to be ready and vigilant. And otherwise, it's kind of like at this point, if you haven't protected yourself, if you haven't gotten a gun, if you haven't done those steps, it's foolishness at this point. It's complete foolishness on your part to think that you're going to be okay and you're going to be safe and everything is going to be hunky-dory. Odds are nothing will ever happen in your life. But what if you're the one guy where it does happen, or the one gal where it does happen, and you could have done something beforehand and didn't? Like here in California, there's our drinking line for all of the I mentioned this. So I was trying to get my concealed carry weapon amended. So again, we have to list by serial number the guns that we carry. And my county has gone to a rule where they don't care how many guns you have listed on your CCW. You can have as many as you want. You just got to basically be qualified on it. And I shoot so much. I mean, it doesn't matter, right? Like I'm going to qualify because you qualify at 3 yards, 5 yards, and 7 yards. I'm sorry, if you can't hit the freaking target at 3 yards, you probably shouldn't be carrying. Like, just you really shouldn't.
Yeah,
and
it's not hard to qualify. It really isn't. Yeah.
No, not at all. And it's taken. Normally, it would take a day to get my amendment approved. It's been 2 months. And it hadn't been approved. And so last week I finally emailed them. I go, guys, did I screw up? Or is this just, an influx because of COVID and blah, blah, blah. And literally within 5 minutes of me sending that email, they took action on it. And I just got notified right before the podcast that it finally got approved. And they're like, sorry, it took so long. It's because of all the influx of carry requests since COVID. And I'm like, yeah, okay. All the riots, everyone's like, I got to get strapped or get clapped. And it's like a huge backlog where something that literally would take a day took 2 months.
Yikes. That's a lot. But praise the Lord, that's a lot of people carrying. I think that's awesome.
Hopefully they will be carrying, and hopefully they will train, because I can't tell you how many people I've seen who carry at renewals, because we got to get renewed every 2 years and you got to refire, retest. And it's like, holy crap, dude, you carry? Dude, you need to train. You need to get into the range and pull the trigger, because this is ridiculous. You're all over the place.
Which, speaking of carrying, because we know that a lot of people get their permits so that they know that they can carry, and then they very seldom, I shouldn't say very seldom, so many don't actually start carrying.
Right.
And so I'll give you a quick example with my wife. So she and I got permits near the same time. I think hers about a year after I did. We took the training at the same time. Got her a nice little gun, easy to carry, and she's just couldn't get used to carrying it. She was always afraid she was going to leave it somewhere or forget that it, whatever. And, sometimes with the kids, and if you can't go in one place, whatever, the whole thing, she was just uncomfortable with it. Well, then Saturday she goes to Walmart, where her dad actually works at a Walmart out here. And she's shopping around, whatever. And some guy stops and asks some question, and she was just very kind and answered the question. And then she goes to the next aisle and noticed that he's there behind her. And then she goes around the store a little bit more and notices that, like, for some time, this guy is steadily following her around the store. And this goes on for a while. So she texts me, and I'm like, all right, so I'm ready to come to Walmart. And she's like, listen, my dad's working today. She's like, let me just talk to him. So she talks to him. And so now she's walking around with a Walmart employee trying to find this guy to point him out, and he jets. But like, she's like, I got creeped out. Like, it wasn't just the whole, some guys being a little bit of a weird social, whatever. Like, this guy was stalking me in Walmart, and it was creeping me out. And so, I mean, she had to make sure that she was safe to go to the car, because I'm like, the last thing we want. And so I was, I'm getting ready to go out there, and she's like, it's cool, he's gone. My dad's with me. They're taking care of me. But she got home that day, and she's like, I need to carry. And I'm like, no kidding, you need to carry, because you might have been in a situation where you needed to smoke that fool. Yeah. And so now she's kind of getting into the practice of like how she's going to carry it, where she's going to carry it. But she carried that day. As soon as she got home, she got strapped. And so you never know. And so think about that, like the chances, it's like wearing a seatbelt. The chances are pretty low that you're going to be in a car accident today. Probably pretty low that you're going to be in a car accident tomorrow. But the chances that you might have something happen where it would have been better for you to be carried are actually pretty high. And especially now you think about a circumstances like what happened in Colorado. And people think, oh man, he had an AR. He would have been, ready. He's shoulder firing. He's probably in a much easier situation. But I'm like, just think about you with. So if I was there with my Walther, at the very least, if I can dispense some rounds, I put him in a position where he can't shoot and point in my direction without endangering his own life, right? So now he's got to think now about at least one person and avoiding one person. So at the very least, now he's got to go into a defensive position. He's got to go somewhere else. Or maybe he leaves everybody else alone and he's focused on me. That would suck to a certain degree. But even one person throwing some rounds back is better, right? And if there'd been 2 or 3 people in the store, we'd have had that dude on his back, right? And I'm not saying that I'm going to be some expert and be able to, but man, he can only shoot at one person at one time. You got 3 people, even some dude with a little Smith & Wesson bodyguard and somebody else with his 38 special. Man, if he just starts shooting at one of us, the other one has a much better chance to move in and get a shot. So the more people carry, the better. Make sure that you stay strapped or get clapped, ladies and gentlemen, and heck, get some training in. Yeah.
And the other thing too, I would say, and we were going to have a guest on this week. Hopefully he'll be on next week. He had an emergency. Lance Bolin over there from Fast OC. In fact, I was wearing my Fast OC jersey, just for the show, just for having Lance.
Looking good. Man. Oh, fancy.
Oh yeah. Team jersey, baby. Team jersey. So I did a handgun challenge last week, and literally the most fun I've had in months, because it just seems like forever since I've done a challenge. And just there's the adrenaline pump you got when all of a sudden you're running, you're shooting, you're trying to hit the A zone. You've only got so much time, or well, I mean, technically you got as much time as you want, but you're trying to beat everyone else. So you want to use as little time as possible. And it was so much fun. But I would tell people, like, you want to do stuff like that. And especially if you're in Orange County, I would say go to the Fast OC's website. check out when their next handgun challenge is. Start coming to them. They're relatively cheap. I mean, I think it's like $40, and they're fun. And it's the only time you're ever going to be able to run and shoot multiple targets like this.
Yeah.
And that's really the cool thing. In fact, I got some videos from mine. I'll stick it up on the Facebook page. I tried to post them in there last week and it didn't work, but I'll stick them on the Facebook page because it's a lot of fun doing these handgun challenges. Because, again, I'm up against guys who are like so good. I've always said if I can be in the top 50%, I'm feeling good. I was like just slightly below the top 50%. And so the line I like to use for that, and I think we should make this official, is when you're the top person in the bottom half, you're the best of the worst. You're the worst of the best. You're the cream of the crap. And baby, I was the cream of the crap, but it was so much fun. It was just great. I tell people to do some of those challenges, man. Well,
and think about that's, first of all, fun. Second of all, you're getting legitimate training. Third, you're around dudes who know how to make it happen.
Yeah.
Just by watching, paying attention, you're getting something, right? And people are pretty friendly. You're going to have somebody that's going to, and especially if you ask and just say, hey, you're doing great here. Like, what do I need to do different? You got any suggestions? And be teachable. Humility is one of the best things you can bring to the table in those kinds of things. And I know as men, we have a tendency, we go into the gun store, we want to pretend like we know everything. And just doing marketing for a gun store, I'll tell you, the guys at the shop can see those guys coming a mile away. Mm. But even when you know something, going in with humility and asking questions, being teachable, you might even realize, okay, maybe I know more than this guy, but man, the teachability, it allows you to win. It allows you to get something, and highly recommend it. So yeah, everybody show up at Fast OC, see Pete, put some holes in some targets.
And hopefully not the no shoots. The non-threats.
Well, oh yeah. Yeah.
That's the fun part, man. You gotta not hit the non-threat, right? Great. Great practice.
It makes me think of in Men in Black where he's shooting the little girl. Do you remember that one?
Yeah, she's walking around with the physics book. Yeah. I'm wrong here.
He's like, yeah, man, this alien man, he's just working out. He's not doing anything wrong.
He got a cold over here. But she got quantum physics? Something's not right here.
Up to something here. Classics.
Yeah.
Good stuff, man.
Hey, give Lake Erie their plug.
All right. Hey, everybody. So I want to let you know, actually, first, I want to talk about when it comes to Lake Erie Arms, we know we've been keeping up all the stock we can. Obviously, with ammo, it's a little bit tricky, but we normally still have ammo. But we're keeping our stock of guns. We're staying steady. People are coming in buying stuff. But if you want something, we can normally get it for you. So get on in there, because we got shelves full. The other thing I want to say is when it comes to training, you need to be training, especially as it relates to the simulator. If you don't want to burn ammo, come and do the simulator. Even if you do want to burn ammo, you should spend some time on the simulator. The last thing I'll say, we have an open-handed self-defense training. We're going to have some video going up of that. Highly, highly recommending that training for your whole family. Bring everybody in for that. Teach your kids how to defend themselves, because you're not always going to be with them with a gun. So anyway, check it out, learms.net. Can't wait to see you in there. We'll talk to you guys soon.
All right, guys. Take care, everybody. We'll be back next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.
You've been listening to the From Concealment Podcast with Pete Mitchell and Dan Sams. Be sure to tune in next week for more gun talk. Also, check out the From Concealment website for more shooting-related goodness at FromConcealment.com.